Welcome to the Woodshed with Cody Wood on the Equus Radio Network, where some amazing guests stop in, share their stories, and have a few laughs along the way. From the rodeo road to everyday life, it's all part of the ride. Here's your host, Cody Wood.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Woodshed with Cody Wood. I have got a really special guest with me here today, probably one of the men in this world that, when I think of an all-around cowboy, this comes first to mind in my childhood and everything else. This is JimBob Custer. How are you today, my man?
Hey, good, Cody. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just like we were talking offline, I was been excited to try to get you on here and catch up and chat. There's just a lot of different things and times throughout life that we kind of intertwined a little bit, kind of see ourselves in a little bit of a similarity right now, announcing rodeos, and but you just have such a unique background and history in this sport and rodeo as a whole. You've participated in every single one of the events, highly excelled at all of them, but a couple of them, at a really high level, and so looking forward to kind of digging into it a little bit.
Yeah, you bet. Well, too, talking about your announcing and stuff, like we'll get into that too, but I knew you as a kid and stuff, so it's kind of neat to see where you're at with your announcing. And, I think there's a bright future for you. And we've talked about that before, but I'm really proud of you, and man, you're doing good. So keep it up, buddy. Keep it up.
Yeah. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate every aspect and every little piece of help that you've given me along the way. But, like I said, your rodeo life and your family and rodeo is just a staple. Obviously your last name is really, strong when it comes to the bull riding world. Obviously the first thing people think of when you hear Custer is bull riding. And obviously your brother Cody plays a big role in being the 92 world champion, and your brother Danny and yourself. But like I said, when I think of JimBob Custer, I think of an all-around cowboy, and a lot of that comes from our time together when I was young, 13, 14, 15, watching you, spur bucking horses as good as anybody. And so, kind of tell me about, you and your brother's, childhood growing up, getting into the rodeo world, and just kind of where that love for the sport started and how it still is burning today.
Yeah, so we have a pretty unique history there. My grandpa was actually a member of the Cowboy Turtles Association. He rode saddle broncs, and he was a ranch cowboy and stuff. And then, of course, my mom and my aunt, they were both rodeo queens and stuff. And so along comes my dad, who wasn't raised in a rodeo background at all, but went to college at NAU on an art scholarship because he was a great artist. He did scratchboard and could draw and did paintings and stuff, and was a pretty amazing artist. But anyway, he went to college at NAU and met a guy named Cal Baird, who was from Las Vegas, and he was a PRCA bull rider, and Cal was his roommate, so he talked him into getting on some bulls out at the practice pen one day, and turned out he was pretty good at it. So he started riding bareback horses and bulls, and got on the NAU college rodeo team and college rodeoed, and then got his PRCA permit and went on to rodeo a little bit in the PRCA, rode bareback horses and bulls, but met my mom at a rodeo in Williams, Arizona. She was the queen that year, of course, and so the rest is history, so they got married and on they went. But my dad, my mom was a PRCA barrel racer or RCA back then. She was in a deal with Sammy Thurman, and actually went and taught a lot of barrel racing clinics and stuff with her. And so she has a little background there in PRCA as well. And of course we all roped, my dad was roped and stuff, but my uncle Danny, who is my mom's brother, he was a PRCA bareback rider and bull rider as well. So just kind of got it in the background, and so it was kind of just a natural fit for us to, start rodeoing when we were pretty little. My parents and my grandparents actually bought a place in Flagstaff, Arizona, and they built an arena there and put in some buck and shoots, and they actually put on rodeos there. They actually had weekly rodeo events and stuff. So we had a lot of cattle around there. course, my dad didn't have the livestock for the, bucking stock. That was a guy named Wayne Talent that would bring the livestock, but he owned a bunch of roping steers. And so, uh, we just, as young boys, we just got on steers like every day after school, and
It's
kind of
amazing.
led
It's
into
amazing.
our rodeo career.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing when you look at some of these, rodeo athletes and the ones that really excel. A lot of them can be traced back to some sort of rodeo series or, opportunity where they were just around
Yeah.
it all the time and just those little buckle series, like whether, just a weekly deal or whatever it might be, and especially for somebody like yourself, when you're going to something like that, probably working a lot of it, I would imagine, doing
Oh yeah.
every little aspect of rodeo and next thing you know you're in every single event and working both ends of the arena inside and out of it.
Yeah. And of course, it was a great opportunity there, but we roped a lot too. And so we started roping when we were pretty little. And, but I can remember the first time I actually entered a rodeo. I actually was in the steer riding and I was 5 years old, and that was at Flagstaff. And it didn't turn out very good for me. But anyway, I remember getting on this big old steer that had big horns, and I can remember being really scared to get on the steer or whatever. And so I talked my dad into, trading me a steer. I wanted this one behind, that was a little smaller or whatever. Well,
Yeah.
turns out the one I got on really bucked. He jumped out there and really kicked hard and turned back. And the one that I would have got on, a girl who was like a couple years older than me, she got on the one that I was supposed to get on. He just jumped to kick across the pen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a funny little story, but anyways, but yeah, shoot, it just kind of led into, of course, just getting into the rodeo scene and going to junior rodeos. But so there, while we were at Flagstaff, I'll kind of tell you a little background there. My brother and sister, Connie and Brett, they got into an accident and actually died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And so that was a pretty rough time. I mean, I was little, I don't really remember it, but it was a really rough time for my parents. And so from there, we moved actually to Roseburg, Oregon, where my uncle Danny had married Vicky Christensen, who was a part of the Christensen brothers, rodeo company, and they're very famous in that. But so my parents just needed a place. They just needed to make a change and move. And so we moved to Roseburg, Oregon. My dad actually went to work for the Christensen brothers stock contracting company. And my mom actually started trick riding with Vicky Christensen, my aunt, and Sherry Christensen, who later married Rob Smets. That's why we call Rob my Uncle Rob. But anyway, he's not really
Oh,
my uncle,
gotcha.
but we call him Uncle Rob.
Yeah.
And so, but we had a great opportunity there too. And that was what I think that time was when we really gained a love for going rodeoing, because the Christensen brothers were they were permanent, and they had rodeos every weekend somewhere. And so it got us just in the, my dad was working for him. So we were going to rodeos every weekend. And of course, Cody and I, and, we'd work the rodeos as well. And so it was just kind of a natural fit. But I think that's when we really gained kind of a love for not just the competing aspect, but just the going and traveling. You know what I mean? We just went to a
Yeah.
lot of places and that. And so tell you the little background too on my brother Danny. He was my cousin by blood, but my parents adopted him when he was 13. So once we moved back to Arizona, that's when Danny became part of our family, full time, and became my brother. And so
Gotcha.
anyway, so it was pretty
How
neat.
that is neat. I didn't know that. I knew that you had some ties up to the Pacific Northwest, before now even, but
Yeah.
didn't know how or when. So how old were you when you moved back to Arizona?
So we moved in 1976 to Roseburg. So I was 7, and then we moved back in 1979. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so we were only up here for about 3 years, but
Yeah, but then high school rodeo because I mean, there's great cowboys in Oregon too, absolutely. But like in Arizona where you're going to high school and stuff, you guys were surrounded by a lot of really good rodeo cowboys and cowgirls, and I'm sure that high school days and into your, rookie years in the PRCA was pretty stacked. There's a lot of really good cowboys there in Arizona right around your time.
there was, yeah, and so when we came back to Arizona in 1979, we of course got to be a part of the AJRA, which is the Arizona Junior Rodeo Association, and there is where I mean, there were so many good kids coming up through there. I mean, the class, I say my class, I mean, I'm talking about like maybe a year behind me and maybe a year ahead of me, but
Yeah.
shoot, there was like so many of those guys that went on to qualify for the national finals and a whole bunch of events. And of course, the biggest one being Ty Murray, and we're the same age. And so we were kind of rivals in the rough stock end of the arena throughout our whole deal. But man, there was, I mean, you got guys like Corey Fight and Matt Martinez and Travis Cooley. I mean, there was just a bunch of guys that could ride at an early age. Cody Lee, he was a year ahead of us, but yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of guys that rode good. So it was kind of a neat rivalry. But we had like Nick Sarche, Denton Payne, Rube Woolsey. I mean, all these guys went on to the national finals, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some I'm missing. I'm just kind of trying to remember, go through there, but
Yeah.
so yeah, it was a great time, and we just had a bunch of talented group of kids. I mean, even on the girls' side, like our high school rodeo years. I mean, our senior year, we ended up winning the national title. Christina Sanchez won the goat tie-in. We had Betty Joels. I think she won second in the goat tie-in, and I mean, Rube and Denton, they won the year-end in the team open, and of course, Ty was the all-around champ. I won the bronc ride, so it was just a neat time. I mean, we had a whole bunch of good guys in the short round that year, and so yeah, it was good. But
Yeah. I
that
was,
kind of set us up. We knew, and those kids, there was everybody. We like our sophomore, junior, and senior year. I mean, we were all talking about getting. We were going rodeoing. So it was just a cool thing. Everybody had the same goals in mind, and we were all headed to the same place.
yeah, exactly.
So.
I know. And that's why I wanted to ask, because I knew that had to be a really unique environment, pretty competitive, fun at the same time. And so when you're coming out of that, like, and you're starting to, get your rookie card and getting, starting to really rodeo, what was that looking like for you? I know with Cody and stuff, are you guys jumping in the car together? Did you have somebody else that you're rodeoing with that was closer to your age? How was that looking for you?
Yeah, so I just got back from the Brad Jermson Extreme bronc riding deal up there, and
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
had a neat visit with Butch Knowles. I mean, we were on the same flight and stuff. We were talking about that, but even Butch remembered this. But Cody was 4 years older than me.
Yeah,
Danny's 2 years older than me, and so those guys both had their cards, before me, and kind of paved the way a little bit. But we had an opportunity. We Prescott Frontier Days is our hometown rodeo, and it was like 10 or 12 performances back then. And when I was in high school, we would go up to Prescott, and we just stay there at my grandma's house, and we went to every performance. And Harry Vold, he always would let us get on, turnout stock and stuff like that. So, and of course, I got to go traveling a little bit with Cody when I was 15, 16 years old. He was already on the road, and him and Glenn McIlvain were traveling together and stuff. So that was kind of neat. So, but I just had that opportunity to get on livestock, and I was getting on all three events, getting on a bareback, a bronc, and a bull, almost every performance at Prescott. And then when we
yeah,
leave for the summer, we'd go to Santa Fe, we'd go on to Pueblo, Colorado Springs, and Harry would let us get on stuff there too, turnout. So I'm 15, 16 years old. I'm riding at pro rodeos. I'm not entered, of course, but I'm getting to ride around these guys. And so guys would be like, "Where are you going? What are you entered at next?" And I go, "Oh, I'm here. I'm just getting on turnouts." Oh, I don't have my card yet. I'm only 15, stuff like that. So,
yeah,
but it was just it was just a perfect fit, and it boosted my confidence a lot. Of course, when I did finally take off rodeo in my rookie year was 1988, but in '87 at the high school nationals, I'd actually purchased my PRCA car or permit a couple of weeks prior so that I could enter on August 1st, the day I turned 18. And so the high school nationals was on July 31st. It was on a Sunday, and Monday, August 1st, I was at my first PRCA rodeo, which was Iola, Kansas. And I won second. I went from Iola, Kansas to Wahoo, Nebraska, where I won third. And I went from Wahoo, Nebraska to Sydney, Iowa, where there was like 7 go rounds. And at the end of Sydney, Iowa, I'd already filled my permit. So did it in 3 rodeos.
yeah. Nice.
And
That's got to feel good. It's a good way
yeah,
to
it
get
was
started.
it was pretty cool. So
Yeah. Well, and then
but
I mean, it was then if you got your card in '88. I mean, you had some success at some big rodeos like San Antonio and some of those other places then pretty quickly right out the gate then.
I did, yeah. I mean, it was a pretty cool deal. I mean, I went to those winter rodeos in '88 and had a really good winter. And I think I was like seventh or eighth in the world standings when Houston was over.
Mhm.
And of course, that year I had a really good shot to go on and make the finals and do really good that year. Well, during the year, I had entered a circuit rodeo at Globe, Arizona, in the steer wrestling, and tore my ACL in my knee, and so I had to go home for 3 months and just sit, and rehabbing my
Yeah.
knee. And so I just kind of watched my name kind of fall out of the standings. Every time the sports news would come out, I'd be a couple spots lower. And but yeah, so it was I never did make the NFR, but I got real close. I missed it by 2,600 one time, and I missed it by about 5,900 another time. So I got pretty close, and
Yeah, absolutely. That's
but
darn close.
had some
Especially
success
was that in bronc riding or bull riding or both or
in the Bronco. So, I rode all three events all the way through. I mean, I actually went to Snyder, Texas, Western Texas College on a rodeo scholarship, and went down there the first year and stuff. But I rode all. I still did all the events. Of course, I steer wrestled, I team roped, and I even roped calves in high school. Even did cutting in high school, and then of course all the three rough stock events. But my rookie year in '88. I went to some college rodeos, but outside of that, I just kind of stuck just to the bronc riding.
oh,
Um,
okay.
I tried to just make the NFR, and I rodeoed just entering one event probably till maybe about the spring of like '93. I mean, I'd enter circuit. I say that. I mean, I would still enter circuit rodeos in all the events. In the turquoise circuit, I'd enter the bareback riding and steer wrestling and bronc riding and bull riding and stuff. But I figured out real quick. I went to a rodeo at Wilcox, Arizona, and I won that rodeo. I like won every event there, and it was kind of you have one rodeo. It seems like you just can't do any wrong there, and I won it
Yeah.
all around
Yeah.
I don't know, 5 or 6 times in a row. But one time I won the bull riding at Wilcox, and I won like $3,300, which was a lot of money back then. And I'm like, I can pay a lot of entry fees in the bronc riding with this just by riding. So I kept entering the bull riding at circuit rodeos for, I guess until probably '93, and then long about 1993, I just started entering the bull riding everywhere. I just decided to go full time in two,
Yeah.
and
Gotcha. Well, because that was
so
kind of goes right into kind of where my next question was going to be too, because it was right about 93 and if correct me if I'm wrong, but you qualified for the first two PBR finals in
I did.
94, 95 or something along those lines.
So I actually qualified in '94, which was the first PBR finals, and I actually qualified in 1995 as well, but I couldn't compete because I had a knee surgery that year. But I went back in '96, so I got to go to two PBR World Finals, and um, so the first year it was actually me and Scott Wheatley were the two guys. So they took the top two from each division, which back then they had four divisions. It was like pro, touring pro, super pro, and master pro, I think is what they called it. And so they took the top two guys from each division. And so Scott Wheatley and I were the two guys that made it in on that first year. And it was the coolest thing ever. But that first year at the finals, the entry fees were $1,000 a piece, $1,000 to get in. And so the next time I made it in 1996, they actually gave us $5,000, up just for qualifying. So it had already grown,
Yeah,
tremendously.
that's a pretty good swing right there in the first couple years. And that's why like, rodeo and our history and the PBR having their own history essentially and what all that evolution looked like, right at those times, and it was, I'm sure it was touch and go there through 93, 94 and trying to get, it off the ground. But just to be a part of bull riding history and especially where it is now, 30 years later, that's pretty special, and I know maybe not at the time, and maybe never, but especially in some regard. But being that close to making it to the NFR, but being able to say that you made it to the PBR finals twice, that's still a pretty big feather in your cap, that, kind of had to scratch that itch that you might have missed there going to the Thomas and Mack.
Oh yeah. Well, and again, yeah, it's something I'm pretty proud of. I will say this though. I don't have one recorded score at the finals of the 2 years I made it. I actually I rode one bull, a bull of Sammy Andrews called Helicopter, which was a really good bull, but he kind of flattened out and they gave me a reride option. And I took the reride and bucked off the reride. So I don't have a recorded score at the PBR finals, but
Yeah,
I did make it. I did make it. So
you did make it. Yeah, exactly. I know. And that's,
pretty cool.
and when you talk about bull riding and its history or whatnot, I mean, obviously there's phenomenal bull riders now, and there always has been. But that core that was going right then, and who you were going head to head with and competing with, I mean, it might not have been a deeper, tougher nucleus of bull riders when you look at the course of history. I mean, like I said, I mean, you're going 20, 25, 30 deep of really tough bull riders in that time. And I just love that era of bull riding in general.
Yeah, well, I know you're a bull riding fan. Of course, your dad, was one of the best bull riders. Man, that guy could ride,
Yeah.
and he was just, awesome. But yeah, the bull rider. You look at that group of guys, them years, like from about 85 to really about 95 or so. Man, they'll never be another class like that. There just won't. And I mean, we do have great bull riders now, and I'm not taking anything away from these guys, but if those guys, that group of guys, those 40 or so guys that kind of made it through that 10-year period were going now, there'd be a lot of guys that wouldn't win much money today that are on top. You know what I mean?
And it's just deep,
and
like I
you
said,
can't say, huh?
it's just deep, the number of them,
Oh man.
it's not just the one, two, three, the five at the top, it's deep all the way
Yeah.
down. And
Well, you look at those riding averages of those guys back then. I mean, there was 30 guys that had a riding average of well over 50%. I mean,
yeah,
way over that. There was guys that rode a lot of bulls back then, and nowadays, I mean, I think I saw. Did I see? I'm pretty sure I saw this the other day that Kai Hamilton had like a 53% riding average or something for this year.
yeah,
And then Wasey Shala, he's at like 54% or something. And I'm thinking, man, those are the top guys right there. And now those, you look at guys like Jim Sharp and Tuff Hedeman and even my brother, those guys were riding 85% of their bulls. Ted Noose,
yeah,
I mean, those guys rode a lot of percentage of bulls. Now, granted, the bulls, you didn't have as many ranked bulls back then. So I will give them a little bit of credit for, the bulls being a lot ranker. I mean, they're not a lot ranker. There's just more of them,
more of them,
nowadays.
yeah. Just like there was
More
the
of them,
riders back then, in a sense. But yeah, no,
yeah,
though that's where, like, on that same note, let's use your dates there, 85 to 95 is a perfect decade, because the other thing about
yeah,
it too is that I don't think people think about a lot of the time, because our world of bull riding is so different now, when you have obviously the PBR, but all these other large associations that guys have an opportunity to make some money at or whatnot. It kind of diluted the pack in a sense, right? So the idea of
yeah,
who's a better bull rider, when you're talking about Kai Hamilton, Wasey Shala versus the Brady Fielders and the guys there in the PBR. Back then in 85 to 95, that top 15, there was no question. Those were the top
right,
15 bull riders in the world from top to bottom, and you had to work your ass off to get to that top 15. And so you go back
right,
and watch some of those NFRs, and not just the bull riding, obviously, but a lot of them, but all the events, but in the bull riding specifically, that it's so different now, that back then it was raw and real, and sure would love the idea of, of trying to figure out the top 15 right now, and who that might look
yeah.
like. But
No, absolutely. Well, you take the year 1992, for instance. I'll just use my brother, for instance, and I'm sure I'm gonna get these numbers wrong on how many he actually got on. But that year, he won the BRO, he won the Justin All World Bull Riding Championship, he won the World Championship, he won the DNCFR. I mean, he won just about everything you could win. But that year, I want to say he got on somewhere close to 200 bulls, and he only bucked off 12 bulls all year long.
yeah, that's just
You know what I
ridiculous.
mean?
Yeah.
And so they don't, they don't publicize that. But, I mean, even guys like Norman Curry, the same deal. I mean, I heard one time that he got on somewhere around 180 bulls and he only bucked off like 4 times all year long or 5 times or something like that. And
Yeah.
they don't, they're not keeping the records too that they do now, the stats on those guys. So I would like to, I would like to have the technology or the people that are kind of keeping track of that nowadays. It would just be, there'd be no, I mean, it would be, I'm sure Tough and Jim Sharp and Lane, those guys, same deal. They're probably going all year long, getting bucked off 10, 12 bulls,
Yeah.
15 bulls a year, all year. I mean,
Yeah.
that's unheard of. So,
Oh, absolutely. And
yeah,
look at the three times that all 10 bulls have been rode at the NFR, it was in
right.
1988, 1990, and 1994, right there
Yeah.
in our
Yep.
10 year time frame that we're talking about. But, you know,
Yeah.
when you're talking about your riding and stuff, and I just love this question. I've actually had this conversation with your brother too, but is there one bull ride, bronc ride, maybe a couple of them, but that stands out as your favorite bronc ride, bull ride, or what you would think is your best?
Man, that's a good question. I'll say this, I wasn't a real super consistent bull rider, but I rode a lot of the rank. I could ride bulls that were harder to ride, than the others. I seemed to kind of do better on those. But so there was a bull of Mac Altizer's that he called ZZ. I think he called him Bud Light, but he was an unridden bull for quite a long time. There was a big bounty on him, and I went to Steamboat in 1996 and drew that bull, and I rode him. I won the bull riding, and I won more for the bounty than I did for winning the bull riding. But I think I won like 3,300 at the bull riding, and then I won like 5,500 for the bounty. So that was kind of a standout ride.
Was that the
And
black bull?
then
Was he a black bull with like
he
up?
was no, he was a little downhorn kind of paint. He was a red and
Oh,
white
okay.
paint bull. But Rock Ricks won second, and so the top two scores from the deal got to do a match bull riding, and they think the bull I had was Wild Thing, and he was a pretty nice bull, and I fell off him for another $1,000 bonus. But I just rode one of the rankest bulls, but so just to prove it wasn't a fluke deal. So about maybe I think it was later. I think it was about maybe 3 weeks or almost close to a month later, I have him at another PBR at Monahans, Texas. I draw him again and I ride him again the second time. And I won second in the bull riding there and won another bounty of like $2,500 because it went up to $500 every
Yeah.
time he bucked off or whatever. So
Yep.
that was kind of cool. And then he went on to be unridden for another, I don't know, 100 and some outs, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
That
that
is
was pretty
cool.
cool. But I say this. So, one of my biggest claim to fames is, you can't really say you got a claim to fame for bucking off a bull, but so we're at Shreveport, Louisiana, and I got Scat Cat in the long round, and I thought he was the littlest, rankest bull at the time, and I ride him and I win the go round. Well, in the short round, which was pre-drawn, first gets this, second gets this, or whatever. J31 was on the top of the list. And that was bodacious, and
Yeah.
so I'm up there cheering guys on. I'm like, man, come on! I never wanted to win second more in my whole life because I
Yeah.
think the second bull down was Chain Lightning of Terry Williams. It was a really nice bull,
Yeah.
and but anyway, I win the long go and get on J31, and I ride him 7.29 seconds on the
Oh
on.
man. Dang.
So
What
almost rode him.
what year
So
was that?
that would have been 96, I guess. Yeah,
Oh
that year.
man, too. And that's when he was really bucking.
He was pretty rank. So
Yeah, I would imagine that had to
but,
feel pretty dang strong and honky underneath you. Because, like, it's one thing when it was 93 and, he's a 3 year old, and he was coming into his own.
yeah,
He was full grown in 96.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
He was
pretty
pretty
cool. I didn't.
bucky.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that before. But yeah, and like 96 too, 97. I mean, those are the years, honestly, I was 14, 15 years old and having an opportunity to be around you quite a bit. I mean, those couple of summers, I got to see you just about every weekend. It felt like, rodeoing at those, Colorado pro rodeos and some of those other pro rodeos in the Mountain State circuit. And it was fun to watch you ride and to be like like I said, I think, like I said, at that time, especially after the PBR finals and stuff, thinking of you as a bull rider and then just how good you were at riding bucking horses. Just absolutely loved it. Like I said, I grew up in a bull riding family, but man, I can really appreciate a great rank bronc ride just as good as anything else. And so
Yeah.
those are such good times, man. And I wish we could recreate them, so badly. I mean, it was a different world, but man, it was fun.
Man, I tell you, I wish I could go back and do it all again, for sure. But it's kind of funny. So long about those years, not when I was just kind of going to a lot of PBRs too in 94, 95, 96. And I'd kind of quit trying to make the NFR. I just figured I wasn't going to make it. So I started making circles. I bought every card available. So I had like my GCPRA card, which was the Arizona and region, and then the CPRA, Colorado, and then New Mexico, and I think I even bought my KSRA card or KPRA, whatever it was, in Kansas and Nebraska. And we just make circles. And of course, that's where I met you and got to be around your dad, again, after years of, being around him a little bit when I was younger and stuff. But man, that was a cool time there too. And, that CPRA was probably the best. I hate to call them amateur association because they're not, but the best regional rodeo association ever in that time frame from about 96 to maybe on into 2005ish or whatever. But
Yeah, for sure.
man,
For
there's
sure.
some good rodeos and good, you had your dad, and I mean we had like Steve Bulkey, and I mean I can't even remember Kenton Marsh, and there was a Christian Southwick. I mean there were some guys that could ride
Yeah.
bulls. I had Nate Maddox with me, and Jason Maddox, of course, came up too, and stuff. My cousin Brett, I'd take them kids rodeoing, Wasey Barta, and a bunch of kids from my area. But man, I tell you, that was our like PRCA NFR type deal. I mean, there was some rivalries going on. Of course, me and your dad, we battled it out a couple of years there, and I won it
Yeah.
one year and he won it one year. And I mean, but it was the competition side of it and just trying to go to everyone you could go to and stuff. And, it was a good time up
It
there.
was a good time, and the stock contractors that were around then were just great guys,
Yeah.
characters, and had good bulls, and yeah, it was a really good time. I will cherish those days forever.
Celebrating 50 years of protecting animals nationwide, Piranha Animal Health is your trusted leader in insect controls. Effortlessly protect your animals in your barn or backyard with the Piranha Spraymaster system. And when you're on the go, grab our line of ready-to-use products, from all-natural to water-based and oil-based products. Find our products in a feed and tax store near you or on the web at piranhalife.com. When you protect what you love with Piranha, you live the Piranha life.
Well, welcome back, everybody, here for part two of the Woodshed with Cody Wood and my guest here, JimBob Custer. JimBob, we were just kind of reminiscing about the mid '90s there here in the Mountain States and in all your rodeo and all around championships that you were winning there and some of those titles. But those were good days, and your life and history within rodeo has just continued to evolve and grow, and your impact in this sport has continued on still to this day. So a lot of time right in there, but now here you are. You find yourself with your PRCA card again, but in a different form. Now being able to call the rodeos and being just a phenomenal announcer. So I mean, how did that path come about? Because obviously being such a good rodeo athlete, how did the announcing come about?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So we actually did a bull riding years ago in Big Bear, California, and our announcer, there's some circumstances that surround that, but he got there and we rented sound and had everything and all that, but then he couldn't announce the event. So that was my first time at ever just announcing, and I was actually at the contractor there. We had bulls there. But anyway, so that kind of led to years later when I was doing my series, when I was in the contracting business in Wickenburg, I actually would announce some of those series events. And so I kind of had a good time doing that. I got to announce a couple college rodeos and stuff while I was out in Arizona and stuff. So fast forward, I don't want to take up too much time with this, but when I broke my neck in 2008 and got hooked on pain pills and kind of went through a pretty bad patch of my life there. But when I moved from Arizona up to Washington in 2015, came up here and married my high school sweetheart, a gal that I dated, when we were kids and stuff. We kind of reconnected and got together. But anyway, so I'm up here, and Jason Maddox actually invited me to come be a guest at his finals, his Challenge of Champions Tour finals down in Central Point, Oregon. So that year we just took a drive down there. He got me a motel room and just put us up for a couple days and just had us there as his guest, as at his bull riding finals. And so the couple weeks later, he called and he said, "Hey, I got an event coming up in Roseburg and wondering if you want to come judge it." So I came down there and judged it. So that year in 2015, I started judging those Challenge of Champions events, and kind of got me back into rodeo after taking about a 7-year break from all things rodeo. And so that kind of led to just kind of, getting the love for it. Well, about 8 miles from my house here, they had a little bull riding series that they did once a month, and went out there and judged it once, paid like $50 to judge it. I went and judged it. Well, the next month they called and they said, "Hey, our announcer can't come. We want to know if you just want to come out and announce it." They had a sound system there in house. And so I said, "Yeah, what's it pay?" And they said, "Well, it pays $400." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I definitely want to announce."
Yeah.
And so anyways, that's where it started. Lazy HK Bar kind of got me back into announcing. And then Jason kind of let me come co-announce at a couple of deals. I went to Morrow, Oregon, and co-announced with Al Parsons at that one, and then went to Myrtle Point, co-announced with Brian Fry. And so that was all in around 2015, 2016, late 2015. And from there, I started just, trying to learn everything I could learn about announcing. Of course, Randy Corley was just a good family friend and was really close to our family. And so I called him right off the bat, and I started getting advice from him, called Wayne Brooks, because those guys in my mind are the best announcers there ever were, I think. And so started getting advice from those guys and stuff, and then just started picking up rodeos, and man, it just spread word of mouth. One of the things I'm proudest about is I've never called a committee. I've never called one. I've never tried to get a rodeo or anything. It's all been them calling me and just word of mouth, and it's spread like that. But I guess it was about 2019 or 2020, I got a call from Craig Wentz, who had bought into Ace's Wild Pro Rodeo card, and he said, "Hey, we're bringing 11 rodeos to the PRCA, and we want you to be our announcer." And I'm like, "Well, I don't have my PRCA card." And he's like, "Oh, that's kind of too bad, because you'd have 11 rodeos." And so that was that year. I said, "Okay." So I didn't really feel like I was real ready yet. And so I told him, "Yeah, well, I'll think about it or whatever, putting in for my card." And so I went another year. Well, then Tom Reeves called me, and he had bought a card and was going to put on some pro rodeo events. And I'm like, "Man, Tom, I don't have my PRCA card." So I thought, well, in 2021, I just decided to go for it. I just put in my 5 rodeos, and they came and evaluated me, and I got approved. And so 2022 was my first year of being eligible to do PRCA rodeos. And so it's been good. Man, it's just, I've been blessed along the way. The one of the things I love about announcing, of course, it's our sport. I love the sport. I mean, I'm a huge fan of rodeo. I know, like, you and I have talked a lot on the phone. You're a huge bull riding fan. I know you like rodeo too, but I'm such a fan of it. Like, one of my favorite events to announce is the barrel racing. I just love it. I mean, I love watching it.
Too,
honestly. The breakaway open is awesome.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I just love all the events. So it's kind of cool to be able to get to just watch those events and just, and describe them. And, one of the things that Randy Corley said, he said, "You're not the star of the show at all. Some guys think they are, but you're not. All you do is facilitate the action." So he said, "You prep the rides and runs, and you respond to the rides and runs." And so that was good advice right off the bat, because you know how it is. I mean, some of those announcers, they get a little bit of big ego, and they think they're kind of the center of attention, which kind of we are in a way, but you can't look at it like that. I mean, rodeo is rodeo, and it sells. But it's just been a cool deal. And I got my MPRA card, and I've announced the MPRA finals 5 times. And in 2021, they voted me announcer of the year, which was kind of cool. And
yeah, it's really cool.
So had a little accolades in that, got some buckles and stuff that say announcer on it and stuff. And so, yeah, it's been a cool ride, cool. It's been quite a transition. But it's been a pretty cool ride, as you're announcing too, and you're announcing some pro rodeos and stuff. But one of the things that was really cool for me when the announcing deal came on, and the Cowboy Channel started getting really big then too. I would watch every one of those events, and I would watch them with the intent of listening to the announcer. And there's a lot of good announcers out there. And I would take the things that I liked from those announcers and the things I didn't like from those announcers I was listening to, and I formed my style of announcing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And
which is so important, and that's one of the things as an announcer that I love about you is like maybe you can say, oh yeah, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that in there, but obviously it's your voice, and unfortunately a lot of guys that are just getting started, try to replicate somebody, and it goes a long ways in the authenticity and your voice and your pitch and everything else, and it's been fun to, like I said, even starting, watching you at those events, on Facebook and different things at that bull riding down the street from your house to, I told you the other day, I was actually in the Cowboy Channel bar in Fort Worth, and Colorama, or what, I can never pronounce the name.
Colorama.
Colorama, was on the channel in there, you know what I mean? So from go to one point to the other, and like I said, you've won so many buckles throughout your lifetime. I have to imagine that the ones that say announcer on them are probably pretty special, since it's a little different than what you're used to.
Oh yeah, they're special, and I got to give some credit too. There's a couple things, I talk about Jason Maddox, he's a kid that, I was his uncle was my best friend from time we were like in 8th grade and until years after high school and that, but he rodeoed, he was a steer wrestler and saddle bronc rider. And we both made the national high school final stuff together. But anyway, so I knew Jason growing up as a kid, and we kind of got him started in the steer riding. But I got to give him so much credit. I mean, had he not invited me literally down to his finals just to come I didn't even own a cowboy hat, honestly. And so we had to stop at a Western store to get a cowboy hat, for me to go to his finals and stuff. Yeah. But so he, I give him some credit, and then when the time came, when he started hearing me announce a little more, and he knew I wasn't really ready, but he gave me that opportunity to step into that role with some guys that were polished, so really, he gets a lot of credit for where I'm at in my announcing today. And then the other guy too is Marty Campbell, I gotta say. So I started calling Justin McKee a little bit, and my wife was whispering something to me. I didn't know. But anyway, she, Marty Campbell, I started calling Justin McKee and stuff when I was getting an announcing deal too. And he said, hey, I got a buddy up there in Pendleton that you need to get in touch with. And so I reconnected with Marty Campbell, and I didn't even realize this, but in 1996, he actually came to one of my bronc riding schools in Ellensburg, Washington. And so later that year, he even ended up breaking his neck. And then he went on to become a PRC announcer and stuff. But at Ellensburg, he was doing the Bears and Broncs that Daniel Beard does. He said, hey, why don't you just come over and co-announce with me at this event? And I'll kind of give you some pointers and stuff. And so that was a big stage jump for me. I was really nervous there and stuff. But yeah, so it was kind of full circle. So he came to my bronc riding school in 1996 at Ellensburg. And then I went to per se his his announcing school in Ellensburg at the Bears and Broncs and stuff. So it's kind of a big circle there. But yeah, I just got to give them guys props because they helped me a lot,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's funny in different little things, whether it's certain events or people, that really shape and help you get to that next level. Like I know for myself, there's 3 and you're one of them, that helped me get so far ahead so much faster than what I would have if I didn't have, the support and the help and just the flat out education that yourself and these other 2 guys had helped me with. And so I just love to hear those stories, and how that comes full circle. And with Jason too, shout out to Jason Maddox too. For anybody that doesn't know what the Challenge of Champions Tour in the Pacific Northwest, it is a phenomenal series, and Jason and his team do a fantastic job. And it loved the opportunity. Obviously, come full circle, you and I getting a chance to co-announce at a Challenge of Champions event.
Yeah.
That was awfully fun, and they do such a good job in general, and make it easy on us as the announcer, and that was
Right.
pretty cool to be able to come full circle in the sense of, from my perspective, just like you were just saying with Marty Campbell, I mean, like I said, there's really just a couple of guys that helped me get going, and I hadn't seen you in a decade basically, but always picked up the phone, helped me any question I had, and then to have a chance to announce with you there, I'm looking forward to the next time we get to do it again.
Yeah.
It
Me
sure is
too.
a cool process, and this sport is so special. I mean, every sport is got its uniqueness, and it's great aspects about it, whatever it is. But God, rodeo is different. I don't, I know
Yeah.
there's certain reasons why, the traveling and your traveling partners, and you're just in certain elements that, you don't find yourself in a day-to-day basis in some of these other sports, and that bonds you together like a blood brother type of situation.
Yeah, it does.
And
That's good.
but yeah, so looking forward to announcing with you again, man. I mean, it's
Me too.
been fun
Yeah.
watching your career.
Well, and I will say this, I mean, you got a really unique voice, and I mean, you do such a good job. And, of course, we're all still growing and learning. And I mean, I'm assuming you still are, because I know
Oh
I
yeah.
am, even at
Oh
this stage,
yeah.
you're taking things and you're learning and growing, and you get, I can remember the first time I got in a situation where I kind of lost track on my paper, just like even in my sponsor reads or something. And I would just freak out because I can't, now I'm like, I'm behind the mic, and they're all eyes are on me, and I admit I lost my place, and and now it's just like, I mean, I remember I used to tape stuff across I'd take every possible space that I could have, and I'd tape papers everywhere. And now I just have a little 3-ring binder, and
Yep.
I do everything off of a day sheet now, and it's just, so we're growing and learning, and it's just pretty cool. But one of the things I'll say this real quick, and we'll jump off the announcing deal. But Marty Campbell has taught me a lot, because he's such a storyteller, and one of the things that he got me doing really good was cadence and rhythm. Like, you got to have a rhythm, and if you get ahead of that rhythm, then you're trying to force something that's not working, and if you get behind that rhythm, then it's too slow. And so he got me thinking of this rhythm, like a boom rhythm, especially like with the flag presentations and stuff. And just if you get to going too fast, it just doesn't work. And so that was a cool thing. And so I've learned a lot from Marty, just to slow down and just really describe things the way you see it. And so anyway, that was a pretty cool learning
Yeah, and
experience from Marty.
that right there in itself, I mean, that just knowledge and information, and for anybody starting announcing, that goes a million miles, because I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many guys. I mean, everybody probably still to this day, and most people, you almost have to kind of hold your breath through that opening. That's obviously that's the most challenging part. And then once we're rodeoing, it's all downhill, and we're having
It's
fun.
all easy there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
but
Yeah.
that opening, and like I said, find that cadence, and being smooth with it, and slowing down, just you got
Yeah.
time, and all that comes. Like I said, I same way here just recently, where I kind of feel like things have slowed down, right? You hear football players, and you get to the NFL and get there, and it's so fast, and all of a sudden the play is slowing down. It's the same way with this announcing now, and the ability to pick up the mic and just roll, and that's a
Right.
feeling to have. And I'm getting ready. I leave for Vegas on Sunday, and going back to what you were saying about, just kind of sitting there and watching the Cowboy Channel and taking all that stuff in. I'm looking forward to this opportunity, not only to, announce in the morning there at the South Point, but I did the same thing in Fort Worth, but I'll go to the performances at night, at T-Mobile, and I'll go by myself, and I'll sit there and just soak in every piece of the production too. I really love the art of
Yeah.
the production itself. But then, just hang on every word of how those guys are announcing, the fluctuation in their voice, what they're saying, when they're saying it, and just be a kid in a candy store. I was doing that
Yeah.
in Fort Worth, and these people, they're partying, drinking beers, and I could tell they kept looking over like, "What are you doing here?" I was just all by myself, didn't say a word, but
Yeah.
and just like I said, just trying to get better at our craft, and you know, you're always learning, and the ceiling is hopefully a long, long ways from here. But you know, so I
Yeah.
sure do appreciate everything, you know, all the rodeos that you've pitched my way, man.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
I'll forever be grateful. But you know, and the other thing, you know, too, we've had a lot of times to talk about, you know, like I said, kind of going, everybody, you know, this life can be so challenging at times, and I've had some serious bumps in the road, and had to recorrect, and find my way again. And you've helped me through a lot of those times, and it seems like you're really having a big impact on a lot of guys and gals' lives right now, even just with your Facebook, you know, morning scriptures and different things that you've been doing. You know, what has that role played in your life right now, and just where you're at today?
Yeah, no, and I mean, so I got saved at a really young age. I mean, I can't really pinpoint a day where some people can say, August 14th, 1985, I placed my faith in Jesus, or got saved. But I can't really even pinpoint a day that I got saved. My parents were believers, and my dad actually was in music ministry. So he'd go around. That was part of his therapy when he broke his neck and was paralyzed for a short time. And he started re-singing and doing some things. So that was part of his therapy. But so my parents taught me at a young age about Jesus, and I've just always believed. But there's been a couple of stages in my life where I've kind of grown in my knowledge of Christ, And when I was 14 years old, I got baptized in a motel swimming pool in Globe, Arizona by Coy Huffman. That was a kind of defining moment. That was in 1985. And then again, when in 2015, kind of went on a 7-year kind of just all out addiction. I mean, it started with pain pills and it ended with harder drugs, and just lost everything. And so type of deal. But 2015, when I moved up here, my wife, Marty, she got me in a rehab center. And so I actually went there, and it was a faith-based rehab place. So I could tell the Holy Spirit was all over that place, but I really learned about addiction. And from that moment forward was a big turning point for me in 2015. I started actually really beginning to study the Bible more, and even more just in the last 4 years, it's even gotten more and more. But anyway, my Christianity has grown, in levels and stages. And so, but yeah, it's just, the Lord saved me. And what did he save me from? I mean, if you don't know what you need to be saved from, it's sin. And there's a penalty of it. And the penalty is being eternally separated from God, and his wrath upon sin that's going to come at some point. So thank God that he sent his plan. His plan of salvation is Jesus, the blood of Jesus for forgiveness, the resurrection of Jesus Christ for our eternal life. And so when we place our faith in the blood of Jesus and the resurrection of Christ, we are literally saved and rescued. So it's a pretty cool place. And so for most of my life, and as a Christian, I was the guy that had Jesus Lord all over my chaps, had it on my saddle, tooled in my back of my saddle at times, and stuff. But I didn't always live that way, because I didn't necessarily understand fully what we'd been given. And so from 2015 to now, which is 10 years, I went through the biggest learning process in my whole life. And it's been the best time of my life, actually. But my wife, she's, I got to give her so much props, because I've never met a truer Christian person in my life. And when I say that, I mean true in the fact that she lives out her faith every day. She's the same at home as she is in the public. And I didn't understand that, because I was always like a dual personality guy. I was a Christian around the Christian people, and I was a
Yeah.
wild son of a gun around the wild guys. But so I got to watch her over the last 10 years just be a Christian 24/7 all the time, live it out. And so she's taught me more about true Christianity, and I'm talking about biblical Christianity, not religion, not
Mhm.
religious Christianity. I'm talking about true Christianity of the Bible. And so it's just been it's been a neat place to be in for the last 10 years. And now God's blessed us with, I got a great announcing career. We'll do 40 events this year by the time the year's done. I think we counted up like 71 performances or something like that, or 69. I can't remember, but a lot of performances. So we're blessed there. We got a place here with 10 acres, got a house, and I got a great job too on the side, driving truck. And So I'm just super duper blessed. And so let me kind of go back to my morning videos, the deals I've been doing. So when I went to my treatment, they of course used the 12-step program, and I didn't follow through on that. I didn't do that. But part of the 12-step program is just coming and just sharing what's going on, just so you don't hold things in and bottle it up. So I actually started doing those morning videos. I just get on there and just live, and I just talk about how I was feeling that day,
Yeah.
and just kind of sharing and saying, okay, here's my struggle. I still want to, I'm still having the cravings, and I'm fighting the cravings or whatever, and it just kind of, I do that sporadic. I didn't do it necessarily every day when I first started, but I do it maybe a couple times a week. And then I thought, I'm going to start reading scripture, because I would read scripture in the morning anyway, every morning. So I'm like, I'm just going to start reading scripture in my videos. And it kind of led to where I'm at now. And, now it's every day.
Yeah.
I get up every morning, 6 o'clock, and we get on there and we just read scripture. I don't preach sermons. I'm not a pastor or preacher, prophet, nothing like that. I'm not an apostle. I'm just a guy that got my life changed around by opening up the book and just allowing the word of God to soak in me. And it's replaced my worldly thinking with scriptural thinking,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
such an amazing testimony, and just to be able to watch it be played out, and then to where you are now, like I said, with all your blessings and Marty and what she's played the role in your life. I mean, it really is pretty amazing, and you're just getting warmed up, I mean, that's the thing about it too, just like anything else in life, you start catching that momentum, and it's like a snowball rolling downhill. And so it's going to be amazing to watch. These last 10 years has been one thing, and so we'll see what these next 10 years have in store for you. And the other
yeah,
thing about it too is just by opening up the Bible and like I said, reading scripture like you're doing, you're not preaching and everything else like you're referring to, but just that and alone, I can tell you there's been days where I might have had, a negative thought or been down and kind of going through something that's helped me. It's helped me. And whether I've sat on there and watched for quite a while, or even just to see you up there and post and whatnot, I can assure you that it's helped me. So I am sure that there's a lot of people that it has really impacted, and you've gained, hopefully a lot more believers just from that simple act every morning. And so I sure do appreciate you doing that and telling your story. And, like I said, I think that it's just getting warmed up for you, man. And I'm just thrilled for it. And, like I said, you're coming off this, just a couple weekends ago, the big weekend there in North Dakota, and that looked awfully good. And, I'm sure that was a pretty great weekend to build off of this momentum going into 2026 and everything else. And who knows where your announcing career go, but at the end of the day, you do have a really cool little family right now, and you got your
man, thank you.
yeah, you got a
It's
lot going.
I appreciate knowing that, and that's all I've ever tried to do is just try to help people. And, I'm not coming at it from a righteous, more righteous than anybody's standpoint, because I know where I came from. But, it's just, I just wish I wished I'd had somebody in my life like that was, trying to push me to be better. And, in my Christian walk, I mean, I had plenty of guys who were pushing me to be better in my rodeo career and stuff. But when it comes to Christianity, some guys they're afraid that if you step out there, you think you're being, holier than thou or judgmental. And that's not the case. But we need each other. I really feel like God put us in a whole body of Christ with different giftings for a purpose. And that's because some days, like you said, I need encouragement too. I need someone to just pick up the phone and call me and say, hey man, just, or whatever, just encourage me. And so we all do. And so that's kind of why I do those videos. And there's mornings I'll get up and I'll be like, man, I got nothing. I'm not feeling it. I just open up the book and we just start reading. And I mean, it just all comes alive. The Holy Spirit he's got something to share. I believe this, and the Bible says it too. God's word never comes back void. And so if we speak it, it's going to do. So it encourages me as much as anybody, just when
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like being a Christian that day or whatever. And so it's pretty cool. But I want to say this real quick too. I'm in a real unique position, and we've talked about this a lot in private and stuff. And that's part of the reason why I'm trying to help you get some of these rodeos up here too. But I'm in a unique position, and I'm kind of caught between everybody wants to do bigger, better rodeos, but I'm not really trying to hang my shingle out there to go get rodeos, that are way away from home either.
Yeah.
I mean, I got almost everything I do is within a 6-8 hour, circle. And I like that, so not saying I wouldn't go do bigger, better rodeo. So if any committees out there that are bigger, better and want me to come out, give a call. But you know what I mean? I'm not trying to hang my.
Yeah, but that's just it, as you've built that, you've done that strategically, you were purposeful about your goals and in the life that you're trying to create with not just rodeo, but with Marty and whatever else, and just there in the Pacific Northwest. And it's really commendable, and now, the rodeo, legacy lives on, with the Custer last name. I mean, your son, Marty, I got a chance to announce him the other day. I mean, that was really cool. He can ride bulls pretty damn good. And then, Tyler, and, I know, in the family now, I mean, that, he is handy as they come too. And so it's pretty cool to see another generation of your family starting to keep this rodeo tradition alive as well.
You bet. Yeah. If we can just keep both of them guys healthy right now, because, Marty broke his arm this last summer. And then, of course, Tyler, he just got stepped on the other day on his foot. And he's got like 6 or 8 pins in there and a plate and stuff where it broke his foot pretty bad. But so he's on the mend. But yeah, so pretty proud of those guys, and just they're both my sons, one's a son-in-law and one's my son. So I'm pretty proud of those guys. But yeah, one of the things too I want to touch on, that the cool part about this is when I started this and when I started getting some calls and getting some gigs, I told my wife, I said, when we got together, we had a little deal. It's brutal honesty. It's BH and no BS. I mean, we're just brutally honest with each other. I've never had a relationship like that. Mm-hmm. And so when I started getting these announcing gigs and stuff, I told my wife, I said, you know what, if we can't go do these together, I'm not interested in going. Mm-hmm. And so we pretty much, I mean, there's a handful of them that she doesn't go to, but my daughter's either with me or whatever. But that's the cool thing. We have a travel trailer and we go, we don't hardly stay on rodeo grounds either. There's a lot of times we'll get an offsite RV spot. And when the rodeo's over, we go where it's quiet and we get some rest. And, we're fresh the next day. Because as you know, rodeo, it's their once a year party. It's kind of hard to be rested there. And we're doing 40 events a year. So we kind of get our rest. But it's been that family aspect of it, having my daughter do the music for me at a lot of those and having my wife with me has just been, it wouldn't have been at all what I wanted had it not been that way. So I feel pretty blessed that we do that too. And there's a couple of events I do by myself. Of course, the one in North Dakota, I flew over there with Marty Campbell and I was the music director at that one. But so she didn't come to that one, but it's okay for a couple. But for the most part, I'm not interested if we can't do it as a family,
Yeah, so. Which is awfully special. And how cool is it to be able to do that with your daughter? There's a unique bond between the announcer and the music director at any event, let alone when it's your family member like that and how special that is. I've had the opportunity these last couple of years to do a lot with my sister and my other sister as well, both sisters. And man, I just, look over right in the middle of the rodeo and I'm like, God, how cool is this? How blessed are we to be able to keep doing this and getting paid to do it, and
exactly. I feel like I feel bad almost that they're paying me to do what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Almost. That's right. I mean, it is. It's so cool, man. And to just to keep this thing moving. But JimBob, thank you so much, man, for your time and telling your story. Like I said, I was really looking forward to catching up with you and just so grateful, not only for you joining me here tonight, but like I said, I would not have been able to get to where I am from an announcing standpoint, this fast without you, no doubt about it. And so I'll forever be grateful and cannot wait to co-announce with you again and just, keep this train moving. But thanks for everything, my man. And we'll look forward to catch up with you again soon, have you back on and see how 2026 gets started for you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, shoot, I'm super proud of you, man. And you're definitely one of the best announcers in the game, really.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You are. So keep
a long ways to go.
We
keep moving.
So,
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, JimBob. Folks, this is another episode of the Woodshed with Cody Wood and my special guest, JimBob. And we are thankful to have you here tonight. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. But for right now, you all have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you on the next episode.
If you enjoyed the podcast, let us know. contact Cody Wood at cody@equistelevision.net. Thanks for listening, and join us every week right here on the Equus Radio Network.